Recording, but of course, when I start recording, um, my computer decides to be ridiculous, so I cannot see the words. Give me a second to do the setup here. Okay, it looks a little better. Sorry about that. I know you guys have come to expect excellence from me, and I'm ashamed of myself that I couldn't execute perfectly on such a august occasion as another beautiful recording of California Chapter 5 of the Executive Branch, right? And so this is like definitely a very, very short chapter. I'm going to run through this quickly so I get my big fat face out of the way. Let's see here. I'll just move this down. There we go. Oh, computer. This is good stuff. This is good at watching stuff. Okay. See my notes and stuff in the back of the screen. Okay. So California has a plural executive. Okay. This is critical for the notes, for your test. I'm going to say that again. California has a plural, as in more than one, right? Executive. So like plurals, like goose and geese and moose and meese, right? Meese is the plural of moose, in case you didn't know that, unless you don't know how to write English good. This is a unique institutional feature of the state of California. The plural executive means that there are multiple leaders that control different aspects of the state's coercive apparatus, or meaning the executive branch, which is what the executive branch is, the state's coercive apparatus. This also means there is a division of labor and power amongst the state's various executive officers. There are 8 executive officers plus a 5-member board, right? Established by Proposition 140. Maybe now I can move this back up. Let's see. Established by Proposition 140, these state officers are term limited to 2 4-year terms. So again, that's a big focus on our government, our kind of California government. We have term limits here. After that, they can no longer hold the same office. So we did have Jerry Brown before Gavin Newsom. He's in your book because the book's a little older. Probably next year for those students in 2021, you'll have a better, more updated book. But he actually served more than 8 years, right? Because he was governor, I believe, in the 70s, and this was before Prop 140 was passed, so he was still allowed to run again. Some of you guys were all probably old enough to know Jerry Brown, Governor Moonbeam. Let's see. And after that, you can hold office. This is a picture of Sacramento, the governor's mansion, but they don't actually live there. It's kind of like a historic thing, kind of that. It's not San Francisco, that kind of, what do you call it, like early or mid 1800s kind of architecture. I see more of those houses like in San Francisco, I think. You know, like I'm some kind of architectural expert. Of course I am. In theory, this dispersion of power, so breaking it up, having multiple executives across top offices, inculcates or protects government against the worst effects of a single inept leader. So again, if a lot of you don't, or if he's not president anymore, President Trump, you're probably, yeah, like he's just inept, I don't like him. This is something that in California, they built into the system, the state's constitution, to like prevent, by breaking up the responsibility of the executive branch, right? So the buck doesn't stop with the governor. The buck is shared amongst the executive branch in the state of California's government. But particularly speaking, a fragmented power structure works against the production of consistent government policies and counteracts accountability. So this is true. And every time I teach this, I like to say, this is true, especially, again, I don't know all the other states that have a similar system to California, but because California is such a democratic state, and, you know, we talked about political parties and how they kind of help coordinate and, you know, do things and money and all these different things. It's in the Democrats' interest to kind of have some uniformity in how they behave, right? They don't want to have infighting, like create like a California Democratic Party. And so though this is true, because they're all kind of unified in the Democratic Party and have to get along, because more often than not, like Kamala Harris or even Gavin Newsom, like you can tell they have presidential or federal aspirations. And so in order for that to occur, they're going to have to kind of work together. They don't want to be seen as enemies. So the book is correct, but again, sometimes I disagree with the book to an extent. And so California overcomes that currently because there's such an overwhelming control by the Democratic Party. But if the Republicans ever get a foothold in the state, which I'm sure will happen at some point, you know, who knows what history has in it, then this would become true again, right? Because there have been more Democrats and Republicans in the states past. It changes from time to time. So here's a picture of Gavin Newsom. Hopefully it shows up if you have accessibility stuff in the notes in my alternative text edit I have to do. And that's just him in front of like the seal of California in the governor's office. There you go. So the governor is the supreme executive of the state, the first amongst equals, but the other elected executives do not answer to the governor, which is a big difference, right? So we'll talk about the Secretary of State, for instance, and like the President of the United States can fire. They appoint the Secretary of State gets ratified or approved by the Senate, and then the president can essentially fire them or ask for their resignation. That's not the case in California. The governor really cannot do something if Gavin Newsom, for instance, doesn't like Javier Becerra. So the governor is the head of the state, meaning they speak for California regarding national and international concerns. As I'm recording this, there's always kind of like fires going on in the state. And so, yeah, like the governor kind of takes the lead of like addressing that kind of emergency situation. The duty of the chief executive is to carry out laws of the state. Set policy priorities, call a state of emergency, like the fires, like I was just talking about, and they're head of the state's National Guard. This is Lieutenant Governor Aline Kounalakis, I believe I'm saying it. I think she's like one of the first Greek of people descent to be a politician. So again, like she's a lieutenant governor, maybe she's going to be the next governor. I don't know. Maybe by the time you guys watch this recording, she's the governor. Functions much like the federal VP, vice president. They may break a tie of vote in the California Senate. They're also involved in the UC and CSU system. So a lot of times, you know, for you guys going these 4 years in the state, they have these kind of assemblies or you know, board of regents that agree on things like the tuition rate. And so she was like very much involved in that. She's going to be like the little lead on that. So here we have another politician, crafty politician here. Alex Padilla, right? So he's Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State is critically important with regards to voting and stuff like that. So you really want to make sure you know what the Secretary of State does at the state level, and every state's Secretary of State is responsible for this. The federal Secretary of State is very different. They deal with international affairs. A very important figure in state politics. They oversee elections in the state. So this includes federal elections, like for president and things like that. These include both federal and state elections. Here we have Javier Becerra. Given the current political circumstances as the recording of this video, so they may have changed by the time you watch this video, that have arisen as a result of the election of President Trump. Outside of the governor, the attorney general is arguably the most prominent California politician. This is because they're the attorney general. They're responsible for suing the federal government when the time comes. Is the chief law enforcement officer. So again, like who used to have this office before Javier Becerra? Your book says Kamala Harris, but then she got elected to a senator, right? So maybe Javier Becerra is going to be the next senator if Kamala Harris is now the vice president. I don't know. I'm trying to read the future. Can't see it. This is a result of the law enforcement, and not only does the AG ensure law is being carried out within the state, they also represent the state against the federal government in various cases, right? So there are so many lawsuits because the state of California and the Trump administration disagree so much on immigration issues, on environmental issues, that California and the Attorney General actually has an office in Washington, D.C. because, you know, it's cheaper basically, because otherwise Javier Becerra had to fly back and forth to like protest these cases in federal court. So they actually have an office, which is unusual for a state to have an office in Washington, D.C. like that. Is that it? And that's it. So it's a very short chapter. There are other positions the chapter talks about taxation. Make sure you know that good stuff. But this is not a long chapter. So know who these people are, recognize their face, maybe vote for them, maybe don't vote for them. I don't know. And I'm sorry for the lack of excellence, but I have one more video to do. So that one will be, it'll probably be messed up too if I'm being honest. But, you know, I still strive for excellence, as you should all do with your grades. So good luck, good night, good morning, whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you guys in the class in another video.